square root of a negative 36. Now again, people say, oh, that's easy. Just say the square root of 36 is 6 and put a negative sign in front of it. That would be great, but it's not true. Because if you square a negative 6 by multiplying a negative 6 times a negative 6, the answer is a positive 36. And again, excuse me, you need a negative 36. And again, you can't make them both positive either, because a positive 6 times a positive 6 is a positive 36. So you say, well, the answer is a negative 6 times a positive 6? No, because square root means multiplying a number times itself, not times its opposite. And you say, well, what's the answer to this? And the answer is impossible. By the way, impossible is not the same as a non-perfect square. A non-perfect square, an irrational number, is a number you can get close to, but you can't find exactly what it is. All right? Impossible means you can't even conceive or find it, because when you multiply a number times itself, the integer rule says same signs answer positive. Same signs will never be negative. So don't put irrational for this, put impossible for this. And don't put impossible for the other ones we talked about, put irrational for them. It's not the same thing, it has a totally different meaning. Now, this has nothing to do with what we're learning now. I don't expect you to remember this, but you might. I always show it to you. When you go to Algebra 2, which you won't take for at least 2 more years, maybe 3, okay? But when you go into Algebra 2, you'll learn how to find the square root of something like this. Because sometimes in Algebra 2, you'll have numbers like this and you have to work with them. So mathematicians had to come up with an imaginary number. The only way to work with this is pretend there was something that really doesn't exist. And they called that imaginary number I, because imaginary starts with I, all right? And what imaginary number was the square root of a negative 1. Now again, there really is no square root of a negative 1. But if you pretended there was, its name would be I. So then what they did is they said, if you want the square root of a negative 36, make it the square root of 36 times the negative 1, which would become the square root of 36 times the square root of the negative 1. Now the square root of 36 is 6, and now we learn the square root of negative 1 is I. So your answer is 6i. Now if you understood what I just showed you, great. And if you didn't, don't panic. You don't need to know that until 10th grade. And that's a long time for you. But some people do know it, and some people remember it. And some people, even on skills tests and tests, when I give them a problem like this, write that down. And I can't mark that wrong, because the truth is, in algebra, that's actually what this equals. All right? But again, I'm perfectly happy with you using a possible. I just wanted to show you that to you. Because maybe one time in 3 years in 10th grade, when you sit in algebra 2 class, you say, I remember when that old man, Mr. Adu, told me how to do that. What do you know? He knew what he was talking about. But I promise you that's how you would do it. But anyway, that's the things you need to know about square roots that I expect you to know. Although, to be honest with you, I don't think all of that's on the IXL topics. There is square roots on IXL topics. All right, I think Gracie got 100% on that before I even made this video. All right, but I'm not sure there's one that has square root of fractions and decimals and integers on it. But I do know there is a topic that asks you to estimate where a square root falls, because it's going to give you something like this, and it's going to say, what two numbers is the square root of 70 in between? And again, the square root of 70 is an irrational number because there is no number times itself that equals 70. So the question is, what two perfect squares is this in between? And to find that, you need to know those 15 square roots again, because you have to say what perfect squares are smaller and larger than 7. Well, the one that's smaller than that is 64, and the one that's larger than that is 81. So what's the square root of 64? 8.